I'll go ahead and share my screen to start the breakout group discussion. Great. And let me just check first that I have all my co-facilitators and chat manager in here. Great. Taking a look at the room. Okay. Okay. So thank you all for joining us on this Saturday morning. This is the first group for the breakout discussion session. So my name is Linda Lee. I'm an associate planner with the City of San Mateo. This morning I have Nicholas Vu, also Nikki, the note taker for this breakout group, and the chat manager, Patrice Olds. She's a city clerk with the city. And if you have any questions, please send them to her. Her name should be renamed to Chat to Me. And today we'll be focusing on study area alternatives 2, 6, 9, and 10. So the southern portions of San Mateo City. And again, I do want to, remind you all that the workshop materials that will be helpful for you as we go through these breakout group discussions, the existing general plan land use, as well as the place type menus that were covered in the presentation earlier. And Patrice, feel free to drop that into the chat box so everyone has it handy if needed. So just a quick reminder of our discussion this morning. I would like to lay out some ground rules. Again, please speak from your own experience, listen to understand one another, respect differences, be open, stay curious, and we'd like to allow everyone to participate. And so just every comment and input that you hear today, know that they are all valid. And again, the chat manager will field all comments and questions through the chat box. And if you'd like to speak, I do believe our group is small enough where we can allow that. So please raise your hand and Patrice can go ahead and unmute you if needed. Do be mindful of the time and speak to the topic at hand. We may not have time to answer every questions or comment today. And it's important for us in these short breakout group discussions to really focus on the discussion at hand. So again, key highlights between the different alternatives. Alternative A represents the least change in designations with the lowest residential growth. Alternative B projects the second highest residential growth and would spread that growth and mid-rise buildings evenly throughout the 10 study areas. Lastly, alternative C projects the highest residential growth and would concentrate that growth, taller buildings, density around the transit areas. So that would be study area 3 and 4. That won't be covered in my study area discussion today. And so again, these alternatives offer a different approach to plan for housing, jobs, and commercial areas over the next 20 years. And last reminder, today's breakout group discussion is really to gather your input on the 3 different draft land use alternatives for staff to study. Do you think this is the right range of alternatives? And if not, what ideas or changes would you like to see staff evaluate? Again, we are not making any decisions today. We are not voting, whether alternative A is better than B. It's really to gather your input, your comments, any questions that you see missing from the 3 different alternatives. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the first study area. So the first study area is number 2. This is the Bell Mateo Bowl and Molly Stone Shopping Center area. And just to give you some quick context to orient you, this is the existing general plan land use. It's currently zoned for neighborhood commercial, mostly throughout the Molly Stone Shopping Center area. There are high density residential uses permitted or allowed on the outskirts. And west of El Camino Real, we have service commercial and neighborhood commercial as well. And so these are the 3 different alternatives that staff is considering for study area 2. A would look at maintaining some of the neighborhood commercial in this area while introducing low residential uses around the Molly Stone and Bell Mateo Bowl area. We would also look at swapping, that service commercial into low residential around here. Alternative B, similarly, would introduce low residential use around the Bell Mateo Bowl, Molly Stone, CVS area, and the main change would be introducing low-rise mixed use in the center of the study area, along on the west of El Camino Real. And lastly, alternative C would be keeping neighborhood commercial use around the CVS El Camino Real corridor, while bringing in mixed use medium on the west side. And so at the bottom, we have the different A, B, and C alternatives, and giving you a net new, the projection of homes, population, and jobs that are planned in the study area. So I'll go ahead and allow Patrice, if you've received any comments, questions, feel free to share them. And if anyone wants to speak, please raise your hand.
There's great interest in seeing the existing land use map, what it is today. So there are a couple of questions regarding that, and an explanation of the boundaries is needed. And I do have one speaker, Lisa Diaz-Nash.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and just quickly cover. So this is the existing general plan land use. And so again, it's, you know, characterized mainly by neighborhood commercial, obviously with residential use is also allowed in there. So I hope this is helpful. And the study area boundaries, they were determined, you know, through several public workshops, you know, with feedback from the community. I went through general plan subcommittee hearings. And so the boundaries were set in a way, you know, this is where the community as well as staff thought that, you know, growth of homes, population, and jobs would be best placed.
And Lisa Diaz-Nash has her hand up, and I've unmuted you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrice. I think my question was more about getting to see the existing map on the same slide as A, B, and C, because I can't really tell what the changes are versus what it is today very easily. Thank you for going back to it, but it would be, going forward, it would be helpful to have the three alternatives and existing all on one slide.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa, for that comment.
We have one other hand raised, John Lavelle.
Thanks. I think actually one thing in all three of these scenarios that I don't see that I think is lacking is some amount of open space, a little park, especially if you're, I think it does make a lot of sense to intensify the land uses in this area, especially with more housing. But I think with that should come an area for maybe more public gathering, perhaps in the, I think the Molly Stones parcel actually around 42nd and Olympic. And I look at that street layout and think it kind of makes sense for like a town square. And especially if you have a scenario that involves more neighborhood commercial as a place that would attract lots of gathering, and businesses could, you know, do well perhaps off of that you know, that synergy. But that's, you know, one thing, a little bit more public space, especially because as it is just lacking in this area, it does seem like there's not really a neighborhood park immediately close by.
Yeah. Thank you, John, for sharing your comments.
And I do want to Nash, so her hand up again.
Okay, one moment. I'm just going to touch really quickly on the park comment. So in the land use map, you can't quite see it. So in alternative B, there's a small P, green P shown. Sorry, my mouse is a little fidgety right now. But so we did, you know, consider on these private properties allocating, you know, considering privately owned public open space. And so that's something we could, you know, look at incorporating into these private properties for future development. Okay. And go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I would just like to support John's comment. I think that's a great suggestion. And I'm assuming that any of these scenarios would also include, as sort of a next step, figuring out what had to be done from a public transit perspective or a parking perspective. Is that correct?
Yeah. Correct. And that's great feedback. And yeah, we'll go ahead and make note of that. And there's also a circulation facilitation happening as well. So definitely review those alternatives further with those facilitators. Okay, I see another hand up. Go ahead, Patrice.
Mary Lou Cronin.
Hi, good morning. Two thoughts. And one is I fully support John's suggestion. It is so important to have green space. It's what differentiates us from true urbanized areas. And frankly, it's what drew many of us to move here. In my case, or I mean, my husband's case 20 years ago. The other is you made a comment that it would be private space. And what makes me nervous about that is if we truly want to attract little businesses, like if we think today of there's a gym, there was a cheerleading place, even a grocery store, you want a public place that a parent with a young child, our kids are now teens, but I remember looking for space just to walk around, to get out and enjoy. So I think that's going to be critical for that area of the city.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mary, for sharing that comment. I did want to clarify my earlier comment. So yeah, a lot of this is private, privately owned properties, but we do encourage developers to offer community benefits. And so if you look at the legend, it says privately owned public open space. And so although it is privately owned, it is a public benefit. And so, the city can look at potentially offering incentives to encourage developers to do so. Okay, and let me know if there are any other comments. I do want to be mindful of the time. We have 3 other study areas to review. So Patrice, if there's no more other comments, I'll go ahead and move on.
Go ahead and move on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next study area, number 6, this is the Campus Drive area. Currently it's characterized, as an office park on the north area of the study area, and on the south is the Laurelwood Shopping Center. So just to give you a sense of the existing, this is all executive office land use, and on the south where Laurelwood is, it's neighborhood commercial. And I'm happy to flip back and forth between proposed and existing if you guys need. And so for study area 6, the alternatives being considered, A would look at keeping some of the existing, low-rise office use, but bringing in medium residential. And this is consistent, with a recently approved residential project, Peninsula Heights. And it would also bring in low-rise residential use on this edge. And Laurelwood Shopping Center, instead of the existing neighborhood commercial, alternative A looks at bringing in low-rise mixed use. Similarly, for alternative B, Laurelwood Shopping Center would be low-rise mixed use. And then north of that, along Campus Drive, it would be more residential uses, and office use would be concentrated on these 2 parcels that I'm pointing at. And lastly, alternative C would look at keeping Laurelwood Shopping Center as neighborhood commercial, but Campus Drive on the north would be changed to medium residential. And so again, A, B, and C, the net new homes, population, and jobs are shown on the bottom. C would bring in the most net new homes and population. B would be, in the middle, and A would look at keeping most of it the same, with the exception of the new Peninsula Heights project. So if anyone has any comments, feel free to share.
We have one hand raised, Mary Lou Cronin again.
Hi, so for residents who live quote unquote up there, they are driving and they have 92 to their left, so to speak, right? So they need shopping and they're going to be driving. So I am surprised actually that some of Laurelwood would go away, because the greatest number of shoppers there are from that area. So anyway, so it's the shopping comment that I have. The other is transportation, because it seems like if I were to move there with a family, we are a 2-car bound by our cars. So what options are there for people to have access to non-driving or public transportation, excuse me?
Yeah. Great comment. Thank you, Mary. I see another hand raised.
Lisa Diaz-Nash.
Just a question. Are all of these scenarios taking in mind the guidelines of the Age-Friendly Cities project that San Mateo is involved with?
Great question. I'm actually not sure, but I can check with our,
okay.
Yeah. I think, Nikki, if you want to send it to our project questions staff. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Nikki.
And there's just a couple of chats on the previous study area. It seems like there's an opportunity to study a medium intensity for all the parcels east of ECR, particularly the areas adjacent to Vista Avenue are mostly res low. And then Nancy Schneider wanted to know, I think that adding density here would be good so that transit can serve it more efficiently.
Thank you for that comment. And I'm just looking in the room. I know that there are other participants. So if you'd like to, share, feel free to just enter your comments in the chat or raise your hand and, we'll go ahead and allow you to speak. So I think, let's see, Eric or Susan, do either of you have any thoughts so far?
Sure. Hi, this is Susan. I would just like to reiterate, I think, a couple of comments that were made earlier. I was surprised that Laurel, looking at alternative A, that Laurel Shopping Center would be, the proposal is to eliminate a shopping center. I think that's really important, particularly since there is going to be whatever alternative residential use up there and some pretty high, dense residential use as well. You've also got offices, which are also, by the way, very important. Having residential and office close by, I think, can start to eliminate some of the traffic on city streets. And likewise, having a shopping center close by would also eliminate traffic on city streets and keep it somewhat contained, and possibly putting some nice bike paths, walking paths, so the folks at Peninsula Heights and the surrounding neighborhood could shop at Laurel Shopping Center. So I think Laurel Shopping Center is an important use in study area 6. Would also, I'm going to go back to John, when we looked at the prior area, talked about parks and some open space. I
think we lost Susan.
I apologize. I accidentally muted her. I asked her to unmute.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Should I repeat?
I think I definitely hear you on, preserving Laurel Ridge Shopping Center. I do want to mention the low-rise mixed use does allow for commercial use. So it doesn't necessarily mean, we're losing the shopping center. And alternative C would maintain the existing neighborhood commercial designation.
Yeah, and when I say, let me just make, when I say a shopping center, I'm talking about a place where people can go buy food, hardware. I mean, what do people need? Pharmacies, places to go buy food, hardware, some of what I'm going to call the basic necessities that I think are really key. In fact, when I look across the country and I look at urban planning, a lot of the urban planning has shopping, places to shop for food, hardware, pharmacy, within 20 minutes of walking from a dense residential area. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you, Susan. So we'll go ahead and just make a note, to maintain sort of more neighborhood serving uses in this part of the study area. So it looks like we have another hand raised. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. I think adding, if you add a little bit of intensity to the shopping center there and give people options to live where they don't have to get in their car to go to anything, that's going to decrease traffic while allowing more people places to live.
Thanks, Eric. And so I do want to move on to the next study areas. So, but feel free to continue, providing your comments in the chat.
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh.
You didn't see my hand.
Okay, sorry, Pam, go ahead.
I live up in this Laurelwood area, and my husband has worked all over the Bay Area, having to commute. And I think it's really important to have enough opportunity for jobs locally so we can get off the road, because he's worked San Francisco to San Jose to Pleasanton, and most recently in the buildings that will now be Peninsula Heights. So that's the end of that. But just to say, I think that the traffic is pretty awful. And I think we should try to make sure that if we're increasing population, we also increase opportunities to work locally.
Great feedback. Thanks, Pam. So I'm going to move ahead to the next study area in the interest of time. So the next study area is number 9. This is the Hillsdale Norfolk area. And just to orient everyone, on this parcel is the Kaiser Medical Office Building. And across from that, we have the Hillsdale Inn. Right here is the Marina Plaza Shopping Center. And currently it's, a range of commercial uses as the existing general plan land use. So there's neighborhood serving commercial where the Marina Plaza is, and regional community commercial uses on this portion of the study area. And so looking at the 3 different alternatives, A, B, and C would look at preserving the Kaiser Medical Office use. So designating that as office medium for the Marina Plaza Shopping Center. In A, we would look at a regional commercial designation. B would look at combining a mixed use medium with regional commercial. And lastly, C would look at a neighborhood commercial combined with regional commercial. And on the outskirt parcels, it looks like there's not much change. It would look low, medium residential use, service commercial on this parcel. And A and C would look at, excuse me, neighborhood commercial on these 2 portions of the study area, whereas B would look at a low-rise residential use. So if you have any comments, feel free to enter that in the chat.
I am not seeing any comments at this time. Linda, there's no comments.
Okay, no problem. So we can go ahead and move on to the next study area.
Susan wants to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, thank you, Patrice. I'll just make this quick. I'm just going to echo a point I made earlier. That is having shopping centers close to heavily dense residential areas. If you look at the Marina Plaza Shopping Center, there are a lot of apartments and also some dense single-family housing living there. So I would propose keeping the shopping center. Maybe parts could be redeveloped, but once again, places where people can go shopping for food, walk there, bike there, minimize their time on the road there, shopping for food, pharmacies, hardwares, etc. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. We'll make note of your comment.
And 2 quick comments in the chat.
Okay.
Important to ensure we have enough commercial space throughout the area, auto repair, etc. Similar to Laurelwood, making Marina Plaza more of a mixed use area could allow it to increase density without requiring new residents to get in a car.
Mm-hmm. Great comments, thank you. Let me just do a quick time check. I think we have about 3-4 minutes left, so I'm going to move ahead to the last study area. So the last study area to discuss is number 10. This is the Bridgepoint Shopping Center. And so currently it's characterized mostly by regional, community, commercial, high density, multifamily use, where the Bridgepoint Shopping Center and Home Depot is. And on the outskirts are executive office uses, and where the Marriott Hotel is, it's regional, community, commercial. And so alternative A, B, and C, it's really focused on the Bridgepoint Shopping Center. A would look at designating it as regional commercial. B would look at low-rise mixed use with regional commercial. And lastly, C would look at changing that Bridgepoint Shopping Center northern portion to residential medium with regional commercial. Let me see what other changes to highlight.
I think
so go ahead, Eric.
I just wanted to say for here, I think the challenge that I see with Bridgepoint in general is that because it's not really like a transit friendly area, I think maybe there's an opportunity to study, if we're going to study more intense residential there, it's like the concept of making that whole area like a self-sustaining village where you can live, work, and shop. Ideally, maybe one of those 20-minute neighborhood kind of concepts. Otherwise, you really have to focus on how you get people, again, to other places without getting in a car.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Thank you. And one thing I did want to point out is some changes. A, B, and C would look at switching the executive office, which is existing, to medium residential. So in these areas for all 3. And this is an existing apartment. So the general plan would be consistent with that.
There's great support for Eric's comments in the chat. And I want to just remind everyone that the chat is going to be saved. So if we didn't get to a comment, staff will have an opportunity to review it all.
Thank you, Patrice. I think we have one or 2 minutes left in this breakout group. So feel free to enter your comments in the chat. And really quickly, I could do a recap, of what we've heard today in this breakout group discussion. Let me share my. Okay. Thanks, Nikki, for capturing all the notes. And so as everyone was sharing their comments, this is what we've heard for study area 2. Comments, consideration for improving transit in the area, a need for more open space, parks. And one suggestion was to concentrate that on the Molly Stone parking. There's a comment about having a public, that the park is designed for public usage. So that's study area 2. Feedback for study area 6 that we've heard, adding bike paths, walking paths from Lower Wood to the new proposed residential units, Peninsula Heights. Other comments we've heard, keep opportunities for jobs in this area, more options for transit, and lastly, keeping neighborhood commercial uses, so the Lower Wood Shopping Center is key, preserving that. Study area 9, comments we heard were keeping some service commercial uses. Shopping centers should be in close proximity to dense residential uses, having Marina Shopping Center be mixed use to allow for walkability. And the last study area, 10, comments we've heard, that this area is generally more isolated, difficult for transit. So if there's consideration for increasing residential density here, then transit needs to be supporting that, or there needs to be supporting amenities. And then we also got a comment about, considering a 20-minute neighborhood concept for the Bridgepoint area.
Linda, I think we are at time.
Okay. Did they already announce for us to jump to the next room?
They said this was supposed to end at 10:51.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Julia. I see the next facilitators in. Okay, thank you all. So Nikki, let's hop to the next room. That's D.
Okay, so, okay, great. Whew. Hi, everybody. My name is Julia, and with me is Wendy Lau with the city. Wendy will be taking notes today. And so let me go ahead and go to the slide. Hold on one second. Let me go ahead and share. So just real quickly, I am going to be covering, can you see the map?
Yes.
Somebody, okay, perfect. So I am going to be covering 4 study areas. We'll go ahead and start with 1, then go to 4, then go to 5, then go to 7. So we're really covering the northern part of San Mateo. So study area 1 is focusing along the north segment of El Camino, close to Burlingame. The mix of uses in this area are medium density, high density residential, as well as office overlaid with some residential designation. And so that's the current mix of land uses. In terms of the alternatives, and let me know if you need me to zoom in on any of these areas, but let me go ahead and go through a high level overview first. So the alternative A, which is the first map that you see before you, it's primarily residential medium. And there's the key difference between alternative A, B, and C is that you'll note that on Tilton and El Camino, there's that light blue designation. And so that is reflective of mixed use medium. In alternative B, you'll note that in the middle, right where the word Real, El Camino Real is at Poplar and El Camino, there's a designation that is that red color. That's neighborhood commercial, and that's where that gas station is that everybody might be familiar with. And then in alternative C, again, back at El Camino and Tilton, you'll see that that designation is changed to mixed use high. With these changes in colors, there is a difference in terms of the what we're planning for to General Plan 2040 in terms of net new jobs and net new housing, and that's reflected in the table at the bottom. And so let me know if you have any, if you would like me to zoom in on any of these maps, or if you have any questions or comments, please send them to the chat to me, Patrice.
Seeing no comments so far, Julia.
No? No comments? Okay, are there any land uses or any other ideas in these areas for this El Camino area that we should consider that might be currently missing?
There is one question now from Lisa Diaz-Nash. Why are jobs higher in alternative A?
In alternative, when we're looking at the mix of uses that are shown here with the different colors, some of these properties may include a different type of uses, and that may be reflected in this jobs number. And so it's based on the land use designations that are shown in this alternative.
John Lovell has his hand raised.
Hi, John.
Hi there. I don't really see commercial, any kind of retail, at least, doing very well on this strip of land. It's right between downtown Burlingame and downtown San Mateo, which are, they attract a lot of people, especially someone who used to live in this part of San Mateo not too long ago. So I think if you're going to put commercial there, you're probably going to have vacant storefronts, and especially someone who just works in real estate and deals with, in some cases, leasing up commercial spaces. It just doesn't seem like it would be attractive. And so I think it makes sense here to optimize or maximize more housing.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
And there's one comment, it would be nice to have more mixed use so people can get food, buy service, etc.
Okay, thank you for that comment as well. We do have 3 other study areas, so if we're okay here, we can go ahead and move on to the next one, which is downtown.
And just one quick comment, all alternatives seem very focused on residential medium, would be interested to consider much more mixed use along ECR.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Great. Okay, and we can always come back to this map if there's additional, ideas later on. But let's go ahead and make sure we have time to cover the remaining 3. So I'm going to go to study area 4. So this is the downtown area. It's one of the largest geographic areas for study, for further study. You note that across the 3 alternatives, the primary focus is keeping the downtown historic district, which is this boundary in the middle. You'll see this dark line in the middle. And so that preservation of the downtown historic district is consistent across all 3 of the alternatives. The key difference between the different maps is that in alternative A, you'll see that most of the properties are this medium blue color, and that's mixed use medium designation. In alternative B, you'll see the introduction of a few properties between 4th and 5th Avenue, and as well as the health center area in that darker color. That's the mixed use high color. And then in alternative C, there's more of that darker blue color. And the key difference in terms of the different mixed use designations is that mixed use medium, which is reflective of buildings that are 4 to 7 stories, and mixed use high is reflective of buildings that are 8 stories or taller. The other thing that I'd like to point out is in terms of the residential, you'll note that on the east side of the railroad tracks, east of El Dorado and west of the Highway 101, In alternative A and B, you see the designation as that medium orange color, and so that's residential medium. And then in alternative C, you'll see that there's a lighter orange color, and so that's representative of residential low. So the different shadings of the color, as Joanna had mentioned earlier, the lighter shade for the residential low designation is reflective of buildings that are 1 to 3 stories, and then the residential medium, which is that medium orange color, is reflective of buildings that are 4 to 7 stories, with densities that are between 40 to 99 units per acre. Are there any questions or comments about these 3 alternatives for downtown?
Yes, we have a request, if it's possible, to zoom out on each alternative so they can see it a little bit better. And then a clarifying question about how these alternatives differ from existing, and explain the thought process behind it.
Okay, so why don't we zoom in first? So this is alternative A. And so you have Central Park, you have the downtown railroad station with this symbol up here on railroad. And then you have the, let's see, I'm trying to see if there's any other questions to help us orient. So this is alternative A. I'm gonna go ahead and scroll over to alternative B. Can spend a few minutes looking at this. As I mentioned, I think this darker brown color in the middle, which is including 3rd Avenue and a portion of B Street, that's the downtown historic district. And then let's go ahead and scroll to alternative C. Okay. So in terms of the current land use designation, let me go ahead and stop sharing this map. And
Susan has her hand raised also, Julia.
okay, go ahead and ask that question while I pull up the current land use designations map.
Oh, Julia, actually, my question would be better asked if we can pull up the alternatives. Particularly, I have a question regarding C.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Thanks.
And just a quick note, we are at the halfway point.
Thank you. So let me try to reshare the screen again. So what was the question regarding the land use?
Sure. On alternative C, and that's got high dense, that is buildings that are over 8 feet. Here's my question, and I hear this a lot from the folks that live what would be east of this area along Idaho, Humboldt, Grant, Fremont, live on 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. What about the traffic? Because if you start to, and once again, if you're looking at the blue along that is east of North Railroad Avenue, my point here is, if this is considered, traffic is really pivotal for the folks that live east of here.
So
yeah.
Thank you, Susan. So that's part of the technical evaluation that Joanna was talking about that needs to happen with this next stage. And so absolutely, it is something that we've heard, from the beginning of the general plan process, and even, from throughout, since we started this project in 2018. And, transportation and circulation, how people get around, is something that community members have said is really important to study. So that is what we want to do. And that is something that we, for the next phase, once we complete this, this current phase, which is getting a range of alternatives to study, then we get into the technical studies and then dig into those kind of details. So thank you for that comment.
And I have a suggestion from Eric. For downtown, is there an opportunity to study res high in the corridor east of downtown, mostly res medium across the alternatives, and specifically around Gateway Park?
So that's the kind of input that I think Joanna was mentioning. If there is something that's missing that you would like us to consider to study, thank you for that comment. We'll note that down. Let me go ahead and just change it so that we can see all 3 alternatives again. Are there any other comments or questions about the downtown study area? Otherwise, we can move on to the other 2 study areas. We're past the halfway.
Hand. I think you have raised hands.
Oh, great. Yes, Nancy. Who? Patrice. Who? Oh, I'm sorry. My speaker just went out again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. John Lovell has his hand raised. I've asked him to unmute, and then we've got Nancy Schneider right after him. Go ahead,
Hi
John.
there. Actually, this is my neighborhood. I live across the street from Central Park, and one of the things that I love living here, especially as someone who grew up in San Francisco in the city, is that it is one of the few places in the peninsula that is really urban and built up. So I like, honestly, I think adding more mixed uses, but also adding more housing. I'd like to see more housing on top of a lot of the opportunities for building housing on top of neighborhood commercial in the areas now that downtown where you have lots of single story, nondescript commercial structures. And quite frankly, there's a lot of vacancies in downtown. And I think addressing that I think we're looking at an area at a time when retail is being reimagined. And I think one way where you can help retail thrive, especially in an area like this that attracts lots of gathering and is a destination, is adding more residents and housing on top so that you do create that kind of 20-minute neighborhood, and it's a convenient place for people to go and run errands. And it's possible for me and my wife to live in this area, raise a family, and only have one car and get around by foot and by bike. So I'd like to really just I think this is one of the areas in downtown, in the city, where it makes the most sense to just really intensify mixed use and add a lot more housing in particular as well. And I think one thing that would be important too is to add, especially encourage affordable housing here. I don't know what kind of considerations there are. I guess this is more of a zoning question, but a density bonus or a affordable housing density bonus overlay, at least in specific areas. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And Nancy Schneider?
Yeah, actually, John covered some of the issues. I'm actually from San Francisco as well. I live west of downtown, but where I live, I'm on Edinburgh, and we moved there specifically because I like being able to walk places, and I think keeping downtown walkable, accessible, and increasing densities there of use I think would be useful, and also making sure that people can get all their errands done. I mean, we can do 3 or 4 things when we go downtown: the dry cleaner, the barber, the hairdresser, grocery stores. Having that mix is, I think, incredibly important, and allowing people to be able, even if they do have to drive into the area, to drive in and park once and get a lot of things done, I think is really useful. And it is a great asset to the community. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments.
Lots of agreement in the chat. And a quick question, I know you need to move on. Does this align with the downtown master plan?
So we have a downtown area plan that we had started to amend in 2017 and pause so that we can do the general plan project. Once the general plan project is completed, we'll go back and relook at to see where we need to update the downtown area plan to be consistent with the work and the input that you guys are providing in this general area for downtown. So that will be something that we will make sure, to open up for community input to align the 2 documents. But that's for later on.
I see Lisa has her hand raised. I'm gonna just make a time check too.
Yes, we need to move on to the other 2. So if it's a comment, maybe we'll just note it down in the comment.
Just quickly, I think the importance of having gathering places for festivals, events, that was what the master plan for downtown and Central Park had a lot to do with. So not losing that is really important.
Thank you for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. We have two more. I want to make sure we have time for both. Okay, so study area 5, the general existing land uses are again, medium and high density residential, some commercial and some office. And so this is basically the San Mateo Drive corridor, the North San Mateo Drive corridor, and then also Peninsula Avenue. Key differences between the three alternatives is that you'll see that the upper parcel, which has that Safeway noted, the Wood Lake Shopping Center, it's different among all three. In the first one, it's neighborhood commercial, which is the current uses that are on that property. And then in alternative B, that area is changing to mixed use medium. In alternative C, the Peninsula Avenue area is changing to mixed use low. You'll note that in the middle of the study area in alternative A, it's purple and red, and purple is for office low. Red is for commercial neighborhood. And in alternative B, that same area is mixed use medium. And then alternative C, it's going back to that purple and red combination. Alternative C has additional colors that you may not have seen earlier, which is that darker brown color, which is residential high, as well as a darker blue color for that mixed use high. And again, these mix of land uses in terms of changes for net new homes and jobs are reflected in the table at the bottom. So does anyone have questions or comments about these three alternatives?
Nothing posted in the chat yet. There is a hand raised. Go ahead, Lisa.
I don't know whether you captured from the residential input of the survey where the residents are from, but given that there are changes here, I think it'd be really important to make sure you get input from the residents of this area or the businesses of this area about the changes. So you have that perspective.
Thank you for that comment.
And 2-minute mark.
Okay, so let's go ahead to study area 7. The existing uses again are medium and high density residential, some commercial there as well. And as you remember, we're talking about the 101 area. North Amplet currently is commercial service uses, and so that's reflected in the pink. There's Shoreview Shopping Center, which is on the other side of 3rd Avenue and 101. And so that's the designation in alternative A is mixed use low. In alternative B, you'll see the introduction of this darker brown color, which is on the southern portion of North Amplet, and that's residential high. And then in the Shoreview Shopping Center area, that's changing to mixed use medium. And then in alternative C, you'll see that the Shoreview Shopping Center area, a portion of that is changing to mixed use high. And then along North Amplet, you'll see those properties changing to mixed use medium. So are there any questions about these three alternatives?
I see a hand raised. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, just wanted to make the pitch that it's so important to maintain space for our commercial service places. And I can't really tell, my mind is not remembering all the other study areas, but we do have a lot of this in this area. So we need to make sure there's a place to really support these businesses. And
Oh, Lisa, you went mute somehow.
Sorry, that was me. Lisa, you have to unmute again.
Secondly, in the North Shoreview shopping area, I support putting the idea of mixed use and getting more housing in there.
All right, thank you.
And we've been messaged to move on to the next room.
All right, if there's any further questions or comments, go ahead and send it to generalplan@cityofsanmateo.org. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and as our next group is joining us now, this is We've got Brian, Alexander, and Sandy Council.
It is, yes. Hi, Patrice.
Hi there.
Morning, everyone. Let me just pull up my screen here. Okay, can everybody see my PowerPoint? Hopefully, okay, I see some nods. So this particular breakout session, we're going to be focusing on a couple of different areas of study area 1, which runs along El Camino Real. So this portion here goes from just south of Central Park down to almost to 92. And then we have another portion here, a small one in the southern end that goes from about 36th to 40th. We're also going to be talking about study area 3, which is our largest study area in San Mateo. It includes the area of El Camino between those two areas of study area 1, so roughly 92 down to just south of Hillsdale Mall. And then we're also going to be talking about study area 8, which is this area immediately surrounding the 101-92 interchange over here on the east side. So I'm going to start with study area 8, and I know that based on Thursday night and the first 2 sessions that people will have comments about study area 3, so I'll make sure we have plenty of time to talk about that one. And if you want to talk about any of these 4 in particular, make sure to just drop a message in the chat and we'll make sure that we spend enough time on it. So let's just go to 8 first. So as I mentioned, this is the 101-92 interchange area. It includes the Crossroads Office Park. It includes the Marriott here, and then this office complex up here on this parcel. It also includes Parkside Plaza, the area around the fish market here, and then this office parcel right here to the south of 92 in terms of what the current uses are for this particular study area. And now I'm gonna sort of talk through the differences between these 3 alternatives. So I'll start at the northern part of the study area. What is currently this office park here, in alternatives A and C, it's a low density residential designation. In B, it's a medium density. So again, low means 1 to 3 stories. Medium would be 4 to 7. The Marriott and the Crossroads developments stay the same across all 3 alternatives. And these 2 parcels here to the west of the Crossroads change slightly. So they're mixed use low in alternative A, and then a mixed use medium in B and C. Parkside Plaza is different in all 3. So you'll see in alternative A, it's a mixed use low, it's residential medium in alternative B, and then it's mixed use medium in alternative C. And then this large parcel down here, which is currently office, would still be an office designation in alternative A. It would be office medium. B is a residential low, and then C is a residential medium. So those are the main differences between the 3. And I also just want to point out, if you are looking at net new in terms of homes and population, B and C are quite similar. It's really a matter of where within the study area those residences are located. So here you have medium density residential up here at the northern end where this office park currently is. You have a residential medium here in alternative C, but in the aggregate for the whole study area, they're very similar across B and C here. It's just where things are located. So with that, we'll take any questions, comments. Do we fully capture the right range of alternatives here? Are there things that are missing for this study area that you'd like to see us study as we move forward in the general plan update process?
Brian, we have one comment for the need to study circulation is very important if the area north of the Marriott becomes residential. So the residents don't feel isolated.
Okay.
And Lisa wants to know how these scenarios provide shopping for these areas when density increases.
It's a good question. So some of that could be captured by the mixed use designation. So mixed use could include something like ground floor retail and residential above it. It can include a number of different things. So in some cases that might capture shopping needs. There's also this area, which currently is where the fish market is located. It's a residential or a commercial neighborhood designation in A and C, and then a mixed use medium in B. So there's some potential there as well. but we can certainly note the need to ensure that there are shopping needs are met for residents in this particular area.
There's a question, is there open space for gatherings and play? And then we have a speaking request.
Okay, so let me just take the open space one first. You'll notice this green P up here in all three alternatives. So that is what Joanna mentioned is a privately owned public open space. So this could be something like a plaza that's part of that development. But the intent would be that there would be some sort of open space in this particular area in all three of the alternatives.
Thank you. And Susan, please go ahead.
Sure, thanks. A couple of things here. I like B and C, and reason being is we have that high, that office in both of them, and you've got residential, which is within walking distance. My other question, now this is a question, looking at the residential that's proposed in B and C at roughly what looks to be about 3 o'clock, where is the Marina shopping center that we looked at earlier in our session? Where is it relative to the proposal of putting residential in B and C?
So that was probably our study area to the east, and I'm forgetting the number at this point.
Oh, I think, Brian, excuse me, I think, was that at Norfolk and Hillsdale? I think it's south.
Yes,
of here.
yes,
Yeah,
right.
That is, so this is 92 and 101, and so Hillsdale, and so this
okay,
is,
so this would be, got it. All right, so it's south and east. Okay, yeah. So it's nothing walkable to the marina.
I don't think so. It's probably
yeah, I would agree. Okay, thank you. That answered my question.
Sure.
And we have some comments in the chat. Could something other than office high south of Marriott be studied? It's the same in all alternatives. A question about, aren't there plans underway to build townhomes where the fish market is? And what is the green rectangle at the bottom?
So in reverse order, the green rectangle is it's currently a publicly owned, I believe this is an electric substation right now. So this sort of teal color is to denote a publicly owned parcel of land. There is a preliminary application for this particular parcel, which wasn't incorporated here because it's just recently come in, but will be incorporated as we move forward. But no decisions have been made as far as what that parcel will be moving forward.
Excuse me, I heard a comment about could a change, I'm trying to remember what it was. Could it change to the office high?
I think it was the crossroads.
Yeah, so does someone have, yeah, so that's the crossroads. So that's why it's staying the same for all three. But if someone has a suggestion to change it to something else, we would like to capture that.
So that was Eric who had made that comment. And then Pam is concerned that the open space does not match the number of proposed residents. So consideration for open space.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Looks like we might have a hand raised.
Yes, David Hall.
What's going to happen to the shopping centre where Trader Joe's is at the moment? Because that obviously would be a huge asset to the neighbourhood that's going to be either missing in future or going to remain.
So I believe that is basically this area right here to the west of the study area, which would include the Concar project that was recently approved. So there is a mixture of retail and residential there. So that is a good point. There are some areas that might be just outside of the study area that could potentially provide some of the retail or meet some of the retail needs for residents in this area.
Mary Lou also agreed about the need for a grocery store. Otherwise, this could become a food desert. And then John Brook has concerns over park and shopping. There is a development proposal for 1,000 residential and some retail and open south of Concar, east of Grant, where Trader Joe is now located. So just informative there. So just keeping an eye on time for you guys.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should move to study area 3 because it is our largest one. I know we're going to have lots of comments about that. And if people continue to have comments about study area 8, you can feel free to drop them into the chat. Okay, so study area 3 is our largest one in San Mateo. It runs from about 16th Avenue along El Camino Real down to the southern end of the Hillsdale Shopping Center. It includes Bay Meadows and the Event Center, and then the Concar and Station Park Green projects up here. You're going to notice as we go through the alternatives that most of the parcels that are east of this Caltrain line stay the same across all 3 alternatives. And that's in part due to the fact that they are either new developments like Bay Meadows, or they have been recently approved or are currently under construction like Station Park Green and the Concar projects. So a lot of the changes you're going to notice in all 3 alternatives are going to be concentrated between basically to the west of the Caltrain line and along El Camino. So just to hit the highlights in terms of the differences here, in alternative A, the Burrell Square Shopping Center is a mixed-use medium designation. And it, just to note, it does have one of these privately owned open spaces here. 25th Avenue, this area here to the west of El Camino, is mixed-use low. And then the Hillsdale Mall is a combination of a regional commercial and a mixed-use medium designation. In alternative B, the Burrell Square Shopping Center is a residential medium. And again, it still has this privately owned public open space here. 25th Avenue is slightly more dense. It's a mixed use medium here as opposed to mixed use low from alternative A. And then the Hillsdale Mall is a combination still of commercial, regional, and a mixed use medium. And then last, in alternative C, Burrell Square is a mixed use high designation here, retaining that privately owned public open space. Still mixed use medium here for 25th Avenue. And now the Hillsdale Shopping Center includes a combination of high density mixed use and medium density mixed use. So those are the sort of the main differences. You may notice some other parcels shifting as well. So I'm going to put 3 of them side by side so you can have a look at how they change across the 3 different designations. And you also notice here, just north of Hillsdale in alternative B, there's a residential high designation here, whereas in the other 2, it's some combination of mixed use. So mixed use low in alternative A and mixed use medium in alternative C. All right, I know that's a lot of colors on the map, a lot of parcels to look at. So I'm gonna pause and let folks make some comments.
We have a hand raised. Go ahead, David Hall.
Actually, Sharon Hall. So in proposal C, where you have the very high-rise buildings next to Hillsdale Shopping Center, are these the ones where you'd need to get voter approval? Because that looks like that's probably against, would require voter approval because that's what they rejected. If why? And so I'll let you answer that question. I do have one more.
Yeah, so essentially because the time horizon for the general plan update is looking at 2040, we are potentially looking at a time horizon that's longer than the Measure Y extension. So we were asked to study a wide range of alternatives. This designation here, it's mixed use high would be 8+ stories. So it would exceed our current height limits, but it's included here as a possible alternative because it's a potential outcome for the future on that 20-year time horizon.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that answered my question, but this is probably, you have to, I think you're going to have traffic plans as well, because my concern by the way they built some of this new high density stuff, for example, Delaware Avenue that goes through the new Bay Meadows development and then the turning onto Franklin Avenue, where you built those very nice high rises, you did have some open spaces, but you built them all so close to the road and made the road so small. And with the angled parking, it's already a nightmare traffic getting through there. You didn't put anything for a left turn lane on Franklin, so that's a horrible backup. So make sure when you're building these new high density things, you still allow room for traffic and parking. It's way close in.
So one thing to note on that, and thank you for that comment, is even though Bay Meadows here is largely not changing in terms of land use because it's governed by its specific plan, we did include it in the study area for exactly those types of reasons to look at the circulation effect. So as part of the circulation element and in looking at the study area, we will certainly be looking at what the circulation impacts are in that particular part of San Mateo.
And Brian, we have a comment. We need to ensure that there is at least one place that's just for business to attract more companies. Currently, that is the Burrell area. And Susan would like to talk. Go ahead, Susan.
Sure, thank you. I would like to echo that comment, particularly in the southern part of this map. That is the need to attract some more businesses. It's not that far off of 101, and likewise, almost a walkable distance from the newly relocated Hillsdale Hillsdale train station. But I also want to make a comment because I live in this area and I am heavily impacted by the traffic that comes out of this area. And I would have concerns regarding alternative C, particularly as it relates to high density around the Hillsdale Shopping Center. And I know that's going to be studied, but I do want to make a comment on it because my neighborhood is impacted. So I'm just going to make, if alternative C becomes a reality, traffic mitigation that is possible needs and circulation needs to be studied.
Okay, so it sounds like we've had a few comments now about ensuring that circulation is looked at, particularly if any of these developments happen in the southern part of study area 3 here.
Brian, can I jump in?
Sure.
I wanted to clarify. So there were a couple comments about attracting business only at Burrell or Hillsdale areas. That's the way I heard it. So I guess my question is there sites that you would like to see changed from, I think those are mostly mixed use now, to just office? I wasn't sure if that was a suggestion or not. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, and while that commenter is responding or clarifying, I do want to jump also to study area 1 to make sure we have time to talk about that too. But feel free to continue adding comments about study area 3 as well. So this section of study area 1 actually could encompass part of that question around office space by Burrell Square. Currently, it's a mixture of commercial and some mixed use. And then here's what it looks like across all 3 alternatives. So there's a lot of mixed use you'll see across each of these alternatives. You do see high density office here along El Camino in at least A and C. This southern parcel here is a mixed use high. And then largely the main differences between the 3 alternatives, this northern portion here between Central Park and 12th Avenue is a low density mixed use in alternative A. It's a combination of medium density and high density in alternative B. And it's almost all medium density on alternative C. And then the southern portion below 12th Avenue is a combination, as I said, of mixed use medium and then this high office. Here it's residential high, so 8+ stories of residential, and then some residential medium mixed in. And then here it's a combination of mixed use medium and residential medium. So it's there are some differences across all 3 alternatives here, particularly in this southern portion. Do you have any questions or comments about this particular section of study area 1?
Lisa Diaz-Nash commented that it's great to do mixed use in study area 3 along ECR. Need to ensure some good draws or there'll be retail empty stores on bottom.
Okay, thank you for that comment.
I'm not seeing any other notes.
Okay, I can go to the one last tiny portion of study area 1 here, which is south of study area 3. It's about 36th to 40th Avenue along El Camino Real. So right now, where this FedEx is here, it's a mixed use low in alternatives A and B, and a commercial regional in alternative C. So commercial regional, again, is like a neighborhood shops or things that people in the immediate vicinity can get to or would utilize. And then it's neighborhood commercial along El Camino and 37th in alternative A, and then a mixed use low designation in B and C. Sorry, you are probably hearing a meowing cat in my background.
Any comments? I'm not seeing any comments coming in on this one. And we have 2 minutes left. Okay. Is there does anyone want to go back to?
Yeah, I'm also happy to, sorry, Patrice. Yeah, I'm also happy to go back to any of the other study areas as well to capture comments we might have missed.
And we did get clarification from the commenter that it was a mistake to add housing to the Breakout Square area and their viewpoint. Okay.
Thank you.
Lisa has her hand raised. Go ahead, Lisa.
I'd just like to ask, in the final report of these meetings, if you could include pictures of the existing map on the same screen as the 3 alternatives for each one of the study areas, because I want to take a look at what it is today versus what's being proposed. And I'm sure a lot of people would find that helpful if you had them all on the same slide.
Thank you for that comment. I will note that if you do the online survey, you are able to pull up there's a link on each of these study areas to the current land use designations. So you are able to pull those up and look at them sort of side by side. We tried to make a judgment call around making sure everybody could see everything on here, but I agree it is helpful to have what's currently happening at those areas next to what is proposed.
And Brian, we do have one question about the impact on sales tax revenue to the city. Are these incorporated into the study impacts? Do we take sales tax revenue into consideration?
It's a good question. I am not sure. It wouldn't, if we do, it wouldn't be at this portion of the sort of where we are in the process. It would be further along as we start talking about the impacts of the alternatives that are selected.
Thank you for that.
We have to jump to our final room.
Thank you. Right. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Now we're going to have Carrie, Joanna, and Matthew join us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to your final breakout session of the morning. I'm going to wait for Joanna to pop in and then we can get started. While we're waiting for her, maybe I'll just start with some introductions. So my name is Carrie Stone. I work for PlaceWorks. We're the city's prime general plan consultant. I have Matthew here with me. He's a new engineer of the city, and he's going to be taking notes and capturing all your comments and questions today. And you guys should all know Joanna Jansen. She's the principal in charge of the project, and she's going to help co-facilitate the discussion. So during this breakout session, I'm going to walk you through 3 draft alternatives for circulation. And the circulation alternatives explore different ways people can travel throughout San Mateo. And while they provide the big picture strategy, there are other city documents that will implement these ideas. So I just wanted to call those out right now. That would include the bicycle master plan, which was recently completed, the downtown parking plan, the neighborhood traffic management program, and a future complete streets plan that the city is planning to start. And all the draft circulation alternatives are consistent with these documents, but they do present some new concepts and ideas for the community to consider. So just a reminder that our focus this morning is really on those 2 questions. Is this the right range of alternative scenarios to consider? And are there ideas missing that you'd like to see evaluated? So Joanna's going to share a screen now. I'm going to quickly walk you through the 3 alternatives, and then we can get started on your questions and comments. All right, so you should see alternative A on your screen right now. And alternative A focuses on creating a walkable community in San Mateo by connecting neighborhoods through pedestrian routes. And those routes would connect to transit, schools, and other amenities. Pedestrian improvements could include things like enhanced lighting, adding missing sidewalks, and those are shown by the darker blue lines that Joanna is highlighting right now. Improving pedestrian crossings to make them safer, shown by those blue circles.
I'm sorry, Carrie. This is Patrice. Yeah. We've had a request if we can make it a little bit larger to see.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, these maps are really hard to see at a citywide scale. So the trade-off is that you're going to not see the entire thing, but I think that's okay. So yeah, pedestrian improvements could include widening sidewalks, traffic calming, and that could be done through improving speed limit compliance, adding bike lanes, and adding street trees. And so, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, those details would be worked out in the implementing documents that the city has. The green line along El Camino Real, Joanna is highlighting that now, it represents bike and public realm improvements. And those are things like street furniture, better lighting, landscaping, street trees, and parklets. The solid purple line that you see represents existing bikeways of all types. So that could be anything from bike boulevard signage, arrows painted on the street, to a green painted bike lane. And the dotted purple lines represent proposed bikeways, and those are identified in the bike master plan. I want to point out too.
See the dotted lines too, Carrie?
I was just about to. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So those green dotted lines you see are pedestrian improvements shown in the 2012 pedestrian master plan. And it's the hope that the complete streets plan is going to combine those improvements into one document. So we won't have this separate document out there. All right, so moving on to the red lines, the solid red lines are existing shared bike and pedestrian paths. And the dotted red lines are the proposed bike and pedestrian paths. And one last thing about this alternative in the downtown, Joanna's going to zoom in there. It envisions a 2-block pedestrian only street downtown on B Street. And that's between 1st Avenue and 3rd Avenue, shown on that blue line. Right there, yeah. All right, moving on to alternative B. The goal of this alternative is to enhance access to transit in San Mateo, focusing on connections to the city's 3 Caltrain stations and the high frequency bus service that's along El Camino Real. It envisions adding a new shuttle connection between Caltrain and El Camino Real in study areas 3, 6, and 10. And that would hopefully improve east-west connections to the transit along El Camino Real, and that's shown in those yellow lines. It may look like a gold or an orangey color on your screen. This alternative also explores potential bus rapid transit improvements along El Camino Real. These improvements could include things like a bus-only lane, signal preemption for buses, enhanced bus stops, more frequent buses, lower bus floors to improve accessibility, and other improvements that would enhance bus service. Again, you see the same purple, red, and green lines that are shown on alternative A. And those are also on alternative C too, which we will talk about next. So alternative C combines the bike and pedestrian and local transit connections that are shown in alternatives A and B. And it explores some additional inventive urban design concepts, such as implementing a superblock concept in San Mateo's downtown. This idea originally came from Barcelona, Spain, and the primary idea is that through traffic that would normally pass through downtown would have to travel around the perimeter of downtown instead. Cars that want to visit downtown would be allowed, but on a limited interior roadway network, which would free up some more space for pedestrian and civic spaces in the other areas. This alternative also envisions adding an automated micromobility circulator, such as an autonomous vehicle shuttle between Caltrain and El Camino Real, and study areas 3, 6, and 10 to improve the city's east-west connections. And those are shown on these yellow lines. Again, it may look gold or orangey on your screen. The green line along El Camino Real represents bike, public realm, and bus rapid transit improvements that I already described earlier. And this alternative does include those blue circles, which represent proposed pedestrian crossing and safety improvements. All right, so now I'd like to open it up to your comments and questions. Another reminder that we're just asking, is this the right range of alternative scenarios to consider? And are we missing any ideas that you'd like to see evaluated?
We have one comment in the chat right now. Given proposed increase in population, it will be critical to do everything we can to both improve walkability and public transit. No either or, has to be both. And we have two hands raised. First, Nancy Schneider.
I'll keep it brief. What are the dots with the gray instead of the blue dots?
Yeah, so those are existing at-grade Caltrain crossings.
Is part of this alternative anything to change the grade, or that just identifying them?
It's identifying. I know that the city, or Caltrain has identified the grade separation projects, but there's not funding for all of them. Joanna, do you remember anything else about that?
Just to say that, the Caltrain grade separation effort is really proceeding independently of the general plan update. And so whatever does happen with these circulation alternatives, that's going to have to, fit within Caltrain's plans as they are designed and funded over time. But that will happen independent of any, land use or circulation decisions that the city makes. So any of these three alternatives would be expected to be consistent with that in the future.
And then I had one other comment that I think, I like these all. I agree with the comment about that it shouldn't be either or, that it should be both, but it also, and I like that to get the east-west, but we definitely need to consider with the climate emergency and climate crisis, that we do need to do everything to encourage the use of non-motor, of bike, walk, transit, and just reducing trips by car. So whatever we can do to encourage that, any other things to add into it would be good. And the east-west is a problem, east-west connection to get people to walk, or I don't know, even weird stuff on the hills. If we wanted to go just out on a limb, is moving sidewalks or escalators like in Hong Kong or something. I don't know, just ways to get people to stop using their gas-powered cars would be very useful. Thanks.
We have two other hands raised too.
Okay, I just want to follow up on something Nancy said real quick, is that the city does have a recently adopted climate action plan. And so it includes many of those strategies that you're looking for, Nancy, and that will be integrated into the general plan update too.
Okay, David Hall.
Yeah, you may have already incorporated this into your plan, but just in ideas to try and incorporate is maybe pedestrian bridges. I remember going to the meeting when they were developing the Bay Meadows project, and we all said, could we have a pedestrian walkway over El Camino so we could get from one side to the other?
Over 101.
Yeah, over one and there. So I don't think that happened. And also a pedestrian, are they doing the pedestrian bridge over 101 to be able to get to the marina development? So if we could try and incorporate some of those pedestrian bridges to get over those really to, link communities together, because it's really hard getting across El Camino or 101 to do those links. So that's my comment.
Great, that's a great idea, thank you.
Our next speaker is John Lovell. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and then I'll go to Susan after that.
Yeah, thank you. So I would just kind of echo an all of the above kind of sentiment, and it's kind of hard to understand how this is being presented in three different options, I guess, with also understanding if there are perhaps any trade-offs being made between the three, between pedestrian versus transit, mobility versus some of the other more, for lack of a better term, innovative ideas. I would, ultimately say that I think it's an all of the above approach to this. And my other comment is, I think especially we were looking at some of these other study areas that are focused around the 92 and the 101 interchange, and also down around the Hillsdale interchange with 101. And almost kind of scratching my head, because it looks like you're tying together 4 different neighborhoods that are on different sides of the interchange by virtue of the fact that that's kind of maybe where the very practical consideration that that's where, opportunity for more development presents itself. But to tie them together, they're really, the freeway here is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And it's almost, unless you really, if you're going to intensify development here, you really need to focus, I would say, on connectivity improvements here that make it easier for people to get around these big tanglewoods of concrete freeway, especially if we're going to start discussing and studying them as one study area grouped together. Because right now it just almost seems like 4 different neighborhoods that are kind of being tied together without, if you don't have the transportation improvements that are going to connect these areas more naturally that come with it. And I don't necessarily think I see very much in along those lines in either of these alternatives. Maybe that's something that could be spoken about.
Yeah, I just want to get to the first point where you said about the trade-offs, and that we will be evaluating the trade-offs as the next step of this process. Joanna, do you want to speak to the second point?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. You guys have now been through the other previous 3 sessions looking at the land use alternatives and looking at these study areas like 8 and 9 that have development around the interchanges. I think it's certainly true that right now today, if you're over here, you really don't really feel any connection or a sense that you're in the same neighborhood, as somebody who's over here. And that's very understandable. And I'm actually not sure that every land use alternative is intended to create a new neighborhood that straddles 101, because I totally agree with you, John, that that's a pretty huge barrier in so many different ways. But rather, it's the fact that just acknowledging that these parcels, they're larger parcels and they're located right at these interchanges, which are already high traffic areas that have access to regional transportation. And those characteristics of those parcels kind of make them most likely to change. And certainly, the more we can do, I'm absolutely hearing, I think we've heard in every one of these sessions that east-west connections broadly, whether that's pedestrian connections, transit connections, or whatever, or in the northern part of town, in the southern part of town, the need for improved east-west connectivity has come up in all of our sessions so far. So I agree with you about the need to improve that. And at the same time, I don't necessarily think that it's mandatory that as these areas change over time, they cohesively across both sides of 101, this area may be suited for a different type or character of development than this area on the west side of the freeway. Regardless of that, the connectivity is absolutely very important. And I think we will be taking a look at whether or not one or more of the alternatives can be revised in a way that shows some additional ideas for east-west connectivity.
I'm going to say in the chat, there's strong support for multiple ways of improving walkability, transportation, non-car related, and concern about 3rd Avenue grade separation, request for more transit options for the Crystal Spring area, and +1 to all of the above needs to be studied, and pedestrian bridges are supported. And then I think Susan had a comment. Go ahead, Susan.
Sure, thank you. Just 2 comments here. And I'm going to just dovetail off a comment Nancy made about reducing the number of cars on the road. Once again, and I think you've heard this, is within these neighborhoods, giving people access to shop for food and essentials that are 20 minutes from where they live. I think it's really critical. The other item, and this is, I think, regarding alternative B, where it talks about the use of buses. I mean, frankly, if you look at the use of Samtrans, Samtrans loses a lot of money. If you look at the buses, there's not a lot of people taking them. Maybe there's very select routes. So maybe you look at other types of transportation east-west that might include micromobility, scooters, electric bikes, building out our bicycle pathways, pedestrian overpasses. I think that would be my focus versus buses. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had a question of at what time do we consider infrastructure schools and schools and availability of water during our ongoing droughts.
Sure. So those kind of considerations will be evaluated as part of the alternatives evaluation. And once we select a preferred alternative as part of the community process, that will be evaluated in the environmental impact report as well.
And there's a question regarding what are the plans regarding the high-speed rail going on? How will that affect the rail corridor?
That's a great question. Matthew, maybe you have an answer to that?
Unfortunately, I'm not too familiar with that project. I know that they are undergoing a lot of grade separation projects right now. I think one has just opened up on the south side of the city, but unfortunately, I'm not too familiar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Matthew has been with this
example, like very closely related, obviously, to the Caltrain improvements or grade separation that we talked about earlier, where it's something that's going to happen regardless of which path San Mateo chooses for its future, and it's something that the city is going to need to be staying abreast of and tweaking things in response to as that project moves closer to fruition.
There's support in the chat for the concept of mini buses, liking the idea, and a concern that you have to look at how often transit is available. The comment is it's a little chicken and egg. If buses don't run frequently enough, people are less likely to use them.
Thank you. What is our time check?
You're to go to 12:03. It is 11:56 right now.
Great.
Are there any other comments out there?
Maybe while you guys are thinking, Joanna had a question in one of the previous chats that I thought was a good one. Is, do the alternatives capture at least how you'd like to be traveling around San Mateo in the future, or how you think we should travel in the future? Maybe you could think about that through that lens.
And there is a comment of concern about Saratoga and Hillsdale is very congested. So high density there would not work. High density housing, it's already too congested. And also think about where schools are in relation to circulation will be important. So a couple of comments.
Great. So maybe we can look at these alternatives to make sure that we're looking at appropriate circulation for areas around schools too.
And Nancy Schneider has a comment.
It's a question. You sort of answered it after I raised my hand, but so with these circulation alternatives, will they be tweaked once you develop the preferred alternative to study as well? Will they get more specific?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they're still going to be high level, but it won't be. We'll know what it is more. And we'll have some implementing policy that will add more direction, but there will be an action to prepare, more detailed policies for these ideas.
John Lovell has his hand raised.
One other thing, I think on the area in the way north of the city, closest to the Burlingame area, where you do have a more traditional street grid that was developed before the automobile became as widespread as it was. You have a lot of great side streets there that are great for walking and very pedestrian friendly, but you also have much larger thoroughfares like Poplar Avenue, especially. I used to live right off of Poplar and El Camino, and I can't, I've been, I was pushing a stroller across Poplar Avenue and people would just breeze right past me like I wasn't in the street trying to cross. So I think in that area in particular, you need to focus on making the pedestrian connections and crossings around the main thoroughfares more safer for pedestrians and encouraging some traffic calming solutions.
Great, thank you.
We have a question in the chat from David Hall. Would there be a decision about adopting A, B, or C, or some kind of individual alternatives?
Yes, and as I think Joanna said in her presentation, we always think it's probably going to be some combination of these alternatives. We don't think it's going to be A, B, or C, but that process will go through. We'll evaluate them, then we'll bring them back to you as a community to consider. Then it'll go to the General Plan. Wait, I'm sorry, I have two GPACs. So this is called the General Plan Subcommittee, the Planning Commission, and the City Council to select the preferred alternative.
Yeah, and as Nancy raised earlier, it would be something that would be tailored to the preferred land use scenario that ends up being, which is also probably going to be a mix of ideas that are already here. And it won't surprise me at all if new ideas come out through the rest of this process over the next, year and a half or so.
Okay, David was appreciative of your response. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Looks like we have about a minute or two left.
Matthew, do you want to, oh, well, let's go to any comments. And if there aren't any, we can also ask Matthew to just recap briefly some of the main ideas we've heard, but let's hear from David since he's got his hand up.
Oh, hi, thanks. Just echoing what I said before, that some of the transportation that they did through Bay Meadows, that really didn't work very well. They don't provide left turn lanes. The traffic flow is not good through Bay Meadows. So really try and learn from those mistakes and correct them if you can going forward for the new transportation. Like I'm echoing the previous comment also at Saratoga and Franklin, they're always very congested. It seems like it's not really a very good flow. Thank you.
And one final comment, support for the idea of creating a city center and an alternate C for civic events and having cars stay outside of the area, provided that there's sufficient parking nearby too. Thank you, Lisa.
Matthew, if you want to share our notes real fast before we break out.
Sure. So overall, we see a lot of comments regarding east-west connections. There are notes for crossing the ECR and also crossing 101, particularly in the south side near Hillsdale. That was an area of interest there. We see a lot of support for pedestrian bridges and also walkability improvements along the city. There are specific mentions of walkability needs on arterial roads such as Poplar. Along the north side of the city. Let's see, there are also questions, broader questions regarding how we are combining some of these free alternatives and how seems like a lot of the desire is to kind of have all of them an alternative free. We have comments regarding the need to address the climate emergency and how we have to try to get people out of their cars and that we have to promote walkability, biking, and also micromobility options such as e-scooters and other innovative strategies at play. We have questions regarding high-speed rail, suggestions for minibuses, and also comments regarding how transit needs to be more available throughout the city. We have a final comment on regarding the Bay Meadows area and the intersection of Saratoga and Franklin. And we have a final comment regarding the need to create a city center and to keep cars out of the city center to create a vibrant kind of